This is an audio description of an autumn landscape with a view of Het Steen in the early morning, painted by Sir Peter Paul Rubens in 1636. It measures 131 by 229 centimetres. Sir Peter Paul Rubens, the great 17th century Flemish artist, painted this large picture towards the end of his career. He had travelled widely during a busy and successful life, making grand mythological paintings and portraits for the palaces of Europe. He also acted as a diplomat, brokering peace between King Charles I of England and King Philip IV of Spain, both of whom awarded him a knighthood. These activities made Rubens wealthy and highly respected, and he was able to retire to his beloved Flanders. He bought the manor of Het Steen near Antwerp in 1635, where he lived with his second wife, the young Hélène Forment. Here he was able to forget the demands of kings and statesmen and concentrate on his first love, the painting of landscapes. In this painting, he perhaps celebrates his own success, but above all, the prosperity and peace of his native land that he had helped to achieve. He gives us a bird's-eye view of his estate and the surrounding countryside in the early Flemish tradition. Browns and russets, enlivened with touches of red for the foreground, almost immediately below us, greens and golds for the middle ground, and blue for the misty distance. He also uses size to suggest distance. Trees and buildings far away are little more than a blurred line or a flick of the brush, becoming a little larger and painted in more detail as they appear closer to us. Figures and animals are introduced in the middle distance, at first minute, but always given character and activity, however small. Closer still, they become more real, full of life, vigour, and action. We stand on a rise looking out over a vast landscape that stretches away across open countryside into a misty blue distance. The rising sun is still low on the horizon, the blue sky scattered with puffy clouds tinted pale gold by its rays. Field after field glistens with dew. Tiny mop-headed trees stand in clumps or make orderly ranks that mark the banks of silvery streams. Shadows are long, and here and there a single tiny stroke of grey suggests the towers and spires of far distant buildings rising out of the mist. Closer to us, the fields wake up to the morning. On the right, a milkmaid, hardly the size of an ant, strides into a field of tiny, quietly grazing cows. Her deep blue skirt is caught up in one hand, clear of her bare feet. Another milkmaid in pink sits on a stool with her head against the side of a white cow, its head raised, mooing long and loud into the morning air. In the centre, two streams meander between raised banks, one of them spanned by a rickety wooden bridge. A line of willow trees marches away across the fields towards the rising sun. Beside the bridge, under a single tree, a covey of partridges peck at the grass, their soft brown feathers muted in the shade. Towards the left, the far distance is partly hidden by a small hillock on which stand several slender silver birch trees, reaching up spindly branches almost out of the picture. Two magpies launch themselves into the sky from the top branches. Two for joy, perhaps. Further to the left and surrounded by more tall trees is the manor house of Het Steen itself, a substantial grey stone 3-storey building with turrets and stepped gables, its arched windows glinting in the sun. A stone bridge spans a moat and leads to an imposing door. A boy with a fishing rod leans precariously over the bridge wall. Outside on the grass is a family looking out over the countryside. They are in the shadows and indistinct, but dressed in the high fashion of the early 17th century. their silks and satins catching the light. Husband and wife turn to each other, and a young woman, perhaps a nursemaid, sits on the ground with a baby on her lap. In front of them, and close to us, two big brown horses pull a loaded wagon splashing through a shallow stream on the way to market. A peasant farmer rides on the near horse. He wears breeches and black jacket, a red neckerchief tied under his beard, a large soft hat on his head. Behind him, his buxom wife is perched high on their load, with a beaming smile under her broad-brimmed straw hat. She wears a deep pink top stretched tightly over her ample bosom, and a dark blue skirt covers her knees. Her arms are crossed comfortably on her stomach, holding an enormous gleaming brass milk jug close to her. Below her is a calf on its back, with its legs in the air tied together with rope. Directly below us, among the scrubby bushes and wild flowers, crouches another peasant in a black hat, with a long straw-coloured waistcoat over a loose white shirt. He hides behind the stump of a dead tree, the leaves of its few remaining branches tumbling down the bank. He holds a gun in one hand and restrains a lurcher dog by its collar, his eyes fixed on the partridges under their tree. We know that Rubens painted this picture for his own delight, and that it was a companion to the rainbow landscape, which shows a different view of the estate in the evening. The artist painted on large oak panels, but these two pictures are on small pieces of wood, perhaps odds and ends left in the studio. They were cobbled together and added to as he went along, a practice that wealthy patrons would not have accepted. The two paintings were hanging opposite each other in the same room when he died, but were separated when they were brought to London in 1803. The rainbow landscape entered the Wallace collection, and a view of Het Steen in the early morning, the National Gallery.